Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of our podcast for the year 2024, The Frame by Frame, your podcast for all things UX and UI. This week's theme is going to be about personal goals, but in a professional setting. For example, maybe we want to learn a new advanced technique in Figma, or perhaps we want to learn Balsamic, or perhaps if we're for those of us who are working, perhaps we want to transition into perhaps being a senior or a lead UX designer, or perhaps you're a UX designer, UI designer, and you wish to transition into a UX researcher. The possibilities are infinite and endless. And we're going to be talking about our own personal goals for this year, what we'd like to achieve, what new things we'd like to learn, and perhaps even new things or old things we can teach to people. And we'd like to kick off. But first of all, before we kick off with that, we hope that you all had a really nice Christmas or festive period and a really good new year. And of course, from us, we hope that you're not breaking too many resolutions and that this year will be your year. For us, for those of you who may not have seen my LinkedIn post, we didn't record an episode last week because we were all pretty busy doing our own things for Christmas and New Year, families, uh, getting in touch with people, and just enjoying the festive period. But we are back. We have some new ideas for the show. We are thinking of we're going to do quizzes, and we want to give people a chance to have their profile, portfolio, or website. We want to give some exposure to help people out there, and we know that not everyone feel confident being a guest on the podcast, but we know that it would be a nice thing for you to have your profile spotlighted in the chances that you get more chances in getting hired. Right. So, Will and Zach, uh, why don't we kick off with a general idea of what we want to achieve, and then maybe some minor ideas that fall within that. Maybe you want to go first, Will, because I know you were
hmm
quite hot on this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So, firstly, I wanted to talk about this because I realized like December 30th, December 31st, like, wait a second, I am way farther ahead in what I'm able to do right now than I was at the beginning of the year, beginning of 2023. But at the beginning of 2023, I definitely wouldn't have even imagined where I could be by the end of the year. Of course, the general goal of I would like to be working in UX was there, but I didn't really quite understand what I could even achieve by the end of the year. So this episode, I really wanted to have that just time to really sit down and think and imagine what could I be like, what could my status be by the end of the year? What new tools could I be good at? What new friends could I be making on LinkedIn and other environments? So yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation and just think with you guys.
Yeah, well, Zach, do you want to go next? Because I know you when we in the pre-recording that we were doing, you mentioned something, so I think maybe this would also be good for you to say your stuff before I go on with mine.
Yeah, you're fine. I actually forgot to hit my space bar again.
Haha.
Take a week off. Look what happens. No, yeah, this year is gonna be crazy for me. I already know that. As far as professionally, we just launched our product end of December, and it's was going through the debugging, and now when I have no idea what's going on. I'm actually still on vacation. I'll be back on Monday, and I'm kind of nervous because I turned off everything, so I haven't been able to get any alerts or anything. I have a problem turning myself off sometimes. Like,
And that, and there was I thinking you were a workaholic.
yeah, but that's why I had to do that because it's not. I guess you could call it a workaholic, but even I didn't even work on any of my own personal stuff. Like I'm building my new portfolio site for my illustrations and stuff on Webflow. And like the day before I went on vacation, I promised my wife I would turn everything off and not go into my office at all, because if I go into my office, then I'm stuck there because I will start painting or I'll start something, and then I'm just down there. So yeah, I took the opportunity to actually turn off, which was still really hard because the whole time my brain was like churning, like what could be going wrong with our product? What could be happening right now? I'm not getting any notifications. Should I turn them on? Should I just peek at it? What's going on? Should I open Figma? I can't go down there. And so I actually took the time to, I set a goal that while I was on vacation, I would read a minimum of 3 books, and I failed. I got through 2. So
It's still progress.
yeah, no, and there was no way I was getting through 3 because one, hold on, I have it sitting in front of me because I love it and I was highlighting some things out of it. It is 738 pages long. So that one got read. I reread The Design of Everyday Things because I just love that book. It's written very well. It's kind of fun to read. And then I read through a book called Alchemy, and it's like a design book. I don't want to say design, more human like behavior. It's kind of about like thinking outside of the box and why original thought is like, it's almost like everybody's settled for mediocrity these days, especially with TikTok and stuff. Like more content is better than good content. And so it was just like,
Oh, definitely.
so it's a book about like not just having these blah moments of thinking. Like you actually have to like have original out of the box thinking to solve any problems. Otherwise, yeah, there's no innovation that's going to come out of it. So yeah, I read some books. My goal now is to make it through another. Well, this year I have a list. It's 15 books, and I want to make it through all of them. I'll actually post it on LinkedIn because a couple of them I've read. I want to reread really slowly. But the first one I'm going to read is called, what was that? Thinking Fast, Slowly, or Thinking Slowly Fast. One of those. I don't know. It's it's upstairs. I can't even get it right now. But I just got that one. And let's see, what else do I have? I have a couple behavioral psychology books that I want to read. I got really into that in early December. I had read an article about behavioral psychology, and I was like, okay, I'm interested. Let's see what we can find out. And I got my hands on some books, and now I'm waiting for a few to arrive. But when they're here, I'm going to start reading them. So yeah, I have a huge list of books I want to read this year. Professionally, yeah, we'll cover that. I took up enough time just rambling. Sorry.
That's good. That's fun. I read a couple books last year. In fact, I stopped my design work in like September, October, just to kind of take the time to think about where I wanted my job search to go, and also just to educate myself a little bit more. And I realized that I enjoyed reading the books that I read, like deeply. And it had been a long time since I really sat and tried to read a lot. And so reading more is definitely a goal. I don't want to word it that way because it's easy to just not do it if the goal is just to read more. But I think I want to find a handful of specific books and end up targeting those. I know that 700-page book, I think you recommended to me over on LinkedIn the other day. So that's going on the list there. But one thing I've been doing recently that I didn't think I would be touching back in 2023 was a no-code app builder tools. The startup I work for, the whole product is built in Bubble.io, and I said, you know what? Let me just try to be the only other person on the planet besides the founder who knows how this product works who knows how our product works in Bubble. So I've been working deep in that over the last week, and I'm realizing that I actually enjoy it. And my college education in computer engineering is actually deeply helpful here because like I'm not afraid of the program. And so I think I definitely want to spend more time in the no-code app space, learn a few more tools. I'm actually in the middle of taking a paid course by BuildCamp right now called SaaScamp, and just very interested to see where my knowledge for no-code stuff goes. I thought I was moving away from implementation and actual development work when I was leaving computer engineering and going for design instead, but I'm realizing I do still enjoy it. So if I could sort of become someone who can do both, I would be super psyched about that.
I mean, no code is, I mean, it's gotten so good and so fun to use. Like, I use Webflow. There's some things I wish I could change about it. I don't code quick enough or well enough that I trust myself to change anything outside of what I can drag and drop in there. But they do have Figma to Webflow. It is a little funny sometimes. You'll come up with a design, throw it in Webflow, and realize you now have to change a bunch of things. So that's, I think you're making a good move there. I think that's where a lot of smaller companies will start, is the no code, because I mean, development gets expensive, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what else? I mean, it seems like it's very book centered. Your ambitions for this year. I mean, personally, I can't remember really when I last read a book. I think it's just because of the ease of use of being able to just read on the laptop or the phone. And although the only book I really read, and it's not a book as in you read, it has a start and an end. But it's a really good book. It's called The Art of Living. It's by a friend and someone I've seen on and off for the last 20 years, and it's basically like a life's Bible, really, for every kind of situation. So I do read that sometimes, but again, it's not a book that you pick up and you read like you would a novel or anything like that. It's just sort of a reference book, but it's really good actually, and it's called The Art of Living by Ross Brittleton. So it's definitely a book I recommend, and if it's something I'm willing to read, anyone can read it. But for me, my personal goals don't really center around books, although I would like to do more writing. And since November, I've been getting into calligraphy and doing the old
That's
copperplate
so cool.
style with the dipping pen. And I'm very much a traditionalist when it comes to a lot of the old ways. So for me, a fountain pen doesn't cut it. There's just something unique about dipping your pen into ink and then having such a beautiful copperplate writing style. And actually, when it comes to doing stuff in Photoshop or Figma, and I see copperplate, I actually have more of an appreciation for certain fonts when you can write like that. And actually, is slowly starting to take over as my primary means of handwriting style. So I would like to do a bit more writing with that old 1800s copperplate style, and then maybe go on to the Spencerian format. So for me, I would say that when it comes to design, I'd like to focus on manual typography, learning how to write in these different styles rather than typing on a keyboard. So for me, it's definitely more the writing side rather than the reading side. And I would also like to further my knowledge of Figma in terms of the really advanced UI stuff. So they're really my personal professional ambitions that I want to achieve, which is in a nutshell bettering my knowledge of Figma more for the UI aspect rather than just doing wireframing and basic prototypes, and just doing more writing, understanding the typography more, and it's such a thrill.
Awesome.
I can't really. I've not, mind you, I've not really thought about anything else apart from these things in terms of our own ambitions regarding our field. Sorry, Zach, I think you were going to say something.
Oh yeah. I know I haven't had a chance to go to your Figma link you sent me earlier. Today was a weird day. But yeah, it got me thinking because I've had quite a few people ask, and I used to be involved with the Fig Challenge, and I really
Yeah, I
enjoyed
know of them. Yeah.
helping people with their questions, because even some things, like when you think you know something, you get surprised sometimes in Figma, and you uncover something you did not know and it stumps you. And then the person you're trying to help, you cannot, because you don't have the answer to that. It never came up before, and now you have to learn it. But in this process of thinking about what you're trying to accomplish, I've done it. I've done it before. I'll have to figure out it. I'll have to look at your Figma, but it also got me thinking that it might be a good idea to do some tutorials, and I can put them on our frame by frame YouTube and LinkedIn, whatever, because I know I've gotten a lot
And
of
even
other
and even
questions.
Instagram, Zach.
Yeah, anywhere.
And even Instagram.
Instagram would be hard. I think you're docked to like 30 seconds, or did they lengthen that because of TikTok? I'm not sure.
Well, we could still work with that. We can do these really, you know how you get the on LinkedIn, you get quite often you get these videos of these really 20-second, 30-second tips for achieving. So auto frameworks, for example, and for those of you who are just getting into design, auto frameworks or responsive frameworks is where no matter what device you're using, it'll adapt according to the device, whether you're on a desktop, a Macintosh, a small Android, or a big Android. That's basically what auto responsive frameworks is. You don't have to manually do one thing for each device; it does it automatically.
Speaking of auto layout and responsive design, I had been messing with like the bento box thing for a few of our products pages, and when our friend Nerea started, I think I made her brain explode, because some of them, it was obviously built out of boxes, but there was some content in there that had to be expandable or collapsible because of being responsive, and the way I had auto framed it or auto laid out the internals of that box, she was like, "What is going on?" I'm like, "I'm really sorry, I know, but it was the only way I could make it work for Figma."
It was the only way.
But yeah, so no, that'd be something I would totally aim for if people are interested. I put a feeler out on LinkedIn earlier today, but Sundays are weird, so I don't know how many people actually saw it or not. But yeah, so I think that would help as well. And I don't know, do you guys have any ambitions for the podcast this year? Because I would say we're in a new season already.
That's fair.
Oh yeah, I definitely got to jump on this one first. Sorry, Will. But I've been thinking about it a lot, and I made the LinkedIn post, as you guys saw, and this is something I was referencing in the beginning of the episode. And yeah, I'm thinking regarding the season. Actually, as you brought that up, I'm thinking we probably start the new season perhaps in February or March, so we time it in for the new season. So spring, yeah, and also I'm looking forward to saying, on the final episode of the season, just saying thank you very much, cut, bye. Like how probably people used to on TV shows and stuff. But yeah, speaking of ambitions, in fact, I can make this as a general address to all of you out there who listen to this. We are going to be revamping our YouTube channel, so we will be posting tutorials, short recaps of our episodes, and perhaps also some promotional consideration as well. Regarding Instagram, we will be intending to use that platform where we've conducted short interviews. So yes, normally we will get a guest on and we will ask them about themselves and everything else. But sometimes time constraints are a chore, and perhaps we won't necessarily be able to get someone for, say, half an hour or even an hour. So that'll be for the short interviews. Again, it will be for short recaps and also introduction of new horizons for our podcasts and also our own personal journeys. So, what we've been up to in the week or the month, whether we've achieved any new personal or indeed professional goals. Perhaps that we do eventually read all of the books that we want to read, that we learn the typography in terms of manually writing it out, and learning new stuff in Figma or indeed any other software program. So please do look out for that. And we are really going to be knuckling down and pulling our creative minds together to achieve that. But right now, the YouTube channel obviously was a bit lacking, but we really wanted to focus on getting this podcast out there. And of course, the best way to do that was via the most popular platforms, which is Apple, Spotify, Podbean, and Amazon. So please check us out on all of that. And of course, you can always see our posts on LinkedIn with all of the relevant links. But yes, for me, I have some big plans for the podcast. Of course, it'd be nice to keep getting the exposure, but I think we're doing well. We've got thousands of hits across the board, encompassing all channels, and we get more and more followers for our page on LinkedIn.
I'd like to
Which
also make a
means
shout
that-
out to whoever listened to us 398 times in West Virginia or wherever that was.
That was so funny. Yeah, thanks, guys.
yeah, Thanks to those I think who were in one location. I mean, it was we got more views on that than we did the 2 or 3 episodes combined. So yes, a big thank you to those of you out there who listened to our to that episode, which was episode 9, personal branding. Please, for those of you, if you are listening to our podcast again, we would love to have another 389 views and then share it so we get more and more views that are in the 389 quantity. Please do share the podcast. What about you guys? I mean, of course, when it comes to the podcast, we work together on it, we produce it together. But do you guys have any other ideas as well that we can, titillate our viewers with?
Yeah, so I also wanted to talk about like what sort of people you guys would like to meet this year, or some sort of groups you'd like to join, or even friends you'd like to make. I know I have really been enjoying the startup world. I'm not super deep into it, but that's the type of company I work with. We had Florian on one of the last episodes recently. Again, he's the creator of Open Doors, both the product and the newsletter. And I want to kind of just dive deeper into that community. I want to get to know some more founders or people who are just trying to do some cool stuff to just, I don't know, make their dreams come true or just help out some other people. Just everyone I've met in this field so far has been very, how do I even put it? Very emotionally invested in their work. And that is super meaningful for me. So I definitely want to become a larger member in that community, get to meet some of those people. What about you guys?
Great phrasing, by the way. Super phrasing.
Thanks.
Even though I was on vacation, the one thing I didn't shut off was my LinkedIn because I'm addicted to it. I don't know. Sometimes I found I have more to say some days than others. So some days I don't post anything. I might even just kind of lurk around LinkedIn and see what other people have posted. But
I wished I had that habit.
Yeah, it's not so bad. But then in the last 4 or 5 weeks, this is all because I got hooked on design systems this year, and I'd never planned to. It was never something I actually like looked at doing. And the more I've been working on building the design system for my product, I've just fallen in love with it. And so in the last 8 weeks, I've been reaching out to more and more people who have experience in building design systems or working with design systems, and it's a space I really want to get involved in. Again, Will, like with the startups, I love startup company. I don't want to say the culture, but I love the community behind it. Everybody is usually super nice, and they all are really invested or investing themselves in what they're doing. And again, like with Florian, super great guy. I love a lot of his posts. It was nice to have him on. But yeah, no, I want to keep in the startup realm, but I'm aiming at people that are playing with design systems because they're totally interesting. I just read The Atomic Design System by, what is his name? David Bolt, maybe that was it. I don't know. It's in my email somewhere, but I had to get an ebook because there was no physical copy available.
Atomic Design by Brad Frost?
You just...
There you go. Not David, Brad Frost. Yeah.
Nice.
You just actually you just reminded me of another goal I have for our podcast is I want to obviously keep the guest format, but I really hope that we get to have more of an impact, especially for those who are unemployed. I really hope that we can make a difference. I know from even though we've only had a couple of guests, I know from Anna that she has had more exposure on her website and portfolio. And for me, that regarding this podcast, this is actually one of the best things for me that I feel good about is spotlighting people. And I really hope that we can make some degree of influence in helping people get to work and fulfilling their own personal ambitions, because it's very easy, I think, and I think you guys will agree with me on this, to get demotivated and to lose a bit of interest in working with Figma or any given design program. But it is important to keep that up, to not lose your interest, and to make sure that you do have personal goals and ambitions. I mean, what do you guys say to that, Will and Zach? Do you have anything to add, anything to change about that?
Yeah, it's super easy to lose that motivation or the interest when you're doing it alone. So when you have the community, whether it be just the hosts on a podcast or members of a Discord channel, Slack channel, LinkedIn group, etc., who are doing it with you too, just makes a ton of difference for you. Makes it so much easier to stay in the game. And also, losing that motivation for like a week at a time, a month at a time, that's okay too. Motivation comes in waves. Like I experience it myself. I'll have like 2 or 3 weeks of high levels of productivity, doing my design work and everything, and then a week where I'm like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I have to play video games, and then a week of video games later, I'm like, you know what? No, I need to be doing my work.
I agree. I even wrote an article about that, and I don't want to say it's that people get burnt out or demotivated, but it's like in creative problem solving, design, any creative field where your brain is constantly on, you have to take a step back. My 2-week vacation, it didn't feel like a vacation. I always had work in the back of my mind, but I made it a point to shut everything off because I need that downtime to get that creativity back. Otherwise I will burn out and I will be over it. You know what I mean? It'll be almost not worth it at that point where it's like, this is all I do. This is all I think about. I can't. I'm always in Figma. I'm always, I don't know how many times I've rewritten surveys that I have to put out. And even that, it's a creative writing side at that point. How can I best ask this question to gain the most insightful response? And it's a lot of work sometimes. And yeah. So one thing I would like to bring up, I would like to acknowledge that there seems to be this overwhelming sense of defeat with a lot of designers I'm seeing right now, and it has to do with the job search, obviously.
Yeah,
and it's super disheartening and I feel bad. I've already had to tell like 6 people. I don't mind. This is the other thing. I don't mind anybody that's listening. I don't mind if you message me and try to connect and everything. I don't even mind if you just straight up ask me for a job. I will, however, state that I do not own the company that I work at. I am in charge of the position that would be available. Unfortunately, there isn't one, and it's killing me because I've had so many people request help, and I can't help in that way. And I'm doing everything I can, and it's like I'm watching these. I mean, obviously, Cross, you're there too, and I'm watching these people that I follow on LinkedIn, and even though it's just on LinkedIn and it's a virtual connection, if I follow you, most likely I see what you post, or I'll go through my message box, and some people I just don't message because we've had no interaction, and some people we had slight interactions, and I'd like to keep building on them, or some people just messaged and their message was really nice, and maybe it got lost in my inbox, and so I go through my list and I see these people, and sometimes I'll click on their names just to see how they're doing and kind of stalk them for a minute and kind of see, did they get the job? Are they doing anything new? You know? And then I'll see posts from them and they're like, I quit, I give up. And it's like, nah, like this. And it's getting more and more, and it's super.
Yeah.
Yes, it's hard for.
Well, there's a. No, sorry. I was just going to say that there is a. You're absolutely right. There isn't. I mean, I'm definitely guilty of this. There's definitely a more defeatist attitude, but I think as you mentioned on LinkedIn. I mean, I have I follow a lot of people, although I don't get to keep up with everyone, of course not, because having 1,000. I mean, I've got 1,050 followers and about 1,000 connections, but I don't get to keep up with everyone. But I keep hearing more and more of my feed is, and just before I say this, we've obviously covered the job search on previous episodes, so we're not trying to make the focus that, but it is relevant to all of your personal ambitions for those of you listening out there. It is tough. It is getting worse, and it's okay to be defeatist. And here we at the Frame by Frame podcast, we just want to stress that you can reach out to any of us. And also, I will just say one thing as well when it comes to ambition, because I've also noticed. Yeah, I mean, like you said, Zach. It's sometimes you want to help, but you're just not in the position to do so. I mean, I understand that companies have budgets. I understand that we are more or less in a recession of a different kind compared to the 2000s, which we all obviously lived through. But I think that it's important that you have to have your own personal ambitions, but I also think you have to have your own personal motivation. I mean, I see more and more. Perhaps like with stinging nettles and dot leaves, the more I post I see of people who are showing signs of defeat, you see more motivational posts. But I think that actually these motivational posts, as much as there are good intentions, I think now with all the struggles and the desperation, I think that more, it's not a case of people. I mean, I've been feeling like this, but it's not a case of people ungrateful. It's just that I think the help just needs to be more tangible based on the situations becoming dire. So, for example, people, I mean, like myself and a couple of what I call colleagues. I don't like saying connections because it's so clinical, but colleagues where perhaps the unemployment benefit is running out. So, of course, the gravity of the situation becomes very real. Paying bills, paying rent, living on an overdraft. But I really want to mention that. I think that, again, I'm not disparaging anyone who wants to post motivational stuff. I think it's a great thing that people want to help, but I think that it doesn't help really, because I was talking to a colleague earlier on, actually, and yesterday, and I was saying that some of the motivational posts, where they say, "Oh, you have to work on your profile, your portfolio, your CV." There's only so much you can do. When you start asking different people, you get different opinions, and actually that can be very detrimental. So I would say that be your own motivation. By all means, reach out to us. We are always available here at the Frame by Frame podcast. We're always willing to pass on our knowledge, to give tips, to have a support system. We can't stress that enough. Again, we won't make this episode about that because we've talked about it in previous episodes, and we may do another episode about that in the future, of course. But I think it's important that you find your own motivation. Stop. I'll say it bluntly. Stop listening to other people, because I know full well from my own personal experience that I get wound up a little bit. I mean, I will also just add that I think it's important that even if someone obviously can't offer you a job, I think it's important that you make recommendations or you loop people in, like I did with you, William, the other day. I looped you in. I saw there were some vacancies for some jobs across the US,
Yeah, I noticed that. Thank
and
you.
it's just these little. Yeah, no, you're most welcome. And it's just these little things. I think if when it comes to motivation, if you can do actions for people, if you can tag someone in on a post, or you can say, "Hey, I'd be interested in this job, but I see you're looking for someone who speaks Spanish or Croatian or French. I know someone who speaks, for example, French, German, and English, and I think they would be a valuable fit. I can forward you on their CV." I think there really needs to be more. I don't think the help needs to be where you have to give someone a job or you have to have a word with someone. But I think that instead of the motivational post, I think it would be better to just do a little action, tag someone, just forward a job onto someone. And that's what I've been doing on LinkedIn with people, actually, since I developed my LinkedIn when I was starting as a UX designer. I would just loop people in. I would send them when I'd be looking for my own in my own job search. I thought, oh, I know so and so who speaks these languages and has this background. I'll forward them the application. So I think it's more that it's not just one extreme to another. I think that there is a middle ground. I mean, before we obviously move on we move this back to personal ambitions. I mean, what do you guys think about that? The whole LinkedIn thing with how it is now in terms of people's uh, people showing signs of defeat, yet at the same time more motivational posts that, again, in my humble opinion, are well intentioned, but they're actually quite hollow. They're quite broad, or they just they're just uh, they're just imitating what other people have posted. I mean, what do you guys think? Just before we close this little
I think at some point it
topic.
turns into like an echo chamber. Like, even though they're saying something that they hope
That's
is
the word I was looking
meaningful,
for. Thank you.
because so many people are saying relatively the same thing, it just becomes some kind of
Yeah.
mirror pond.
It-
Like, you're only getting the reflection of the
Yeah.
same thing over and over, but it goes the other way too. Then
And it becomes
on
a
the
bit of
other
a
side,
platitude.
on the other side of the water ripple,
Yeah.
you're getting the defeat, and on the front side, you're getting, the I'm wishing everybody luck, and here's a little motivation. And it also comes down to, like, I think you got to look at the people it's coming from, because some of the posts I've seen that seem motivational, it's almost like they're propping themselves up to sell something. If that makes sense. Like, it almost seems like, okay, your next post is going to be like, hey, I have this toolkit available for $300 on whatever, and it'll jumpstart your career in UX. You know what I mean? Like, the way it comes off
Yeah.
is just not very authentic. And
Yeah, it's sort of like those headlines where I've seen, and again, I mean no offense or disrespect to anyone out there, but when I see these headlines, for example, helping designers get that 100K plus job a year, and I'm
yeah,
thinking,
no
well,
way.
actually,
Yeah.
some people, no way. Some people actually, I mean, I for one, I don't really care about 100K a year. I mean, if I were to go for a job or a promotion that just happened to pay that, I wouldn't be doing it for the money. I'd be doing it to better myself or to have more responsibility. But yeah, that's also another thing. I think it's this false. Well, how can I say it in a nice way without being too frank? I think it's it's deceiving. I think because you set
they have
people's expectations so high that
Yeah.
they can't meet them, and then they get disappointed, and then it comes back to a loop of being self-defeatist and demotivated.
And to fit our episode, some of these people have alternative ambitions. Like they say they're going to help you. It might cost you $29.99 per month, whatever. But
Yeah.
no, and because I can't outright just be like, yeah, I'm hiring here. Here you have a job, or I don't personally know of anything open and right now. And the stuff I do find, I think I've tagged you in a couple things. I usually try to like or share a job
Yeah.
posting if I know it's in an area where people
Yeah,
I know are looking.
you do. Yeah.
And the only other thing I do is I always offer, like, not even a portfolio review, just like, hey, you ever want to chat? Just hit me up. Like, I'm available and I love talking design. I love talking anything. Like, let's just do this. And I don't consider myself a mentor. I do consider myself a industry colleague. So if anybody in design came to me for anything or even just to chat, I'm down. Like, that's my thing. And there's been a few people where I don't know if you know him, David Knight, super nice guy. He's great. And
Yeah, I know of him. I think we're connected, but I know the name. Yeah, definitely.
yeah, and I chat with him often. He actually messaged me. I felt bad. Today was my kid's day. Like, I made it a point that it's my last day of vacation, and everything I do today was at home, except for my run this morning, and that was my alone time. And then, and I saw his message and didn't message him back because he had asked something that would just take too long to type at that moment, and I was like, I'll get back to it. And now that I thought about it, I should probably email him when I'm done here. But no, he's super nice, and that's just it. Like, I'm not out to say I'm a mentor, and I'm not out to say that I can change your trajectory on your career, but I'm all about offering insights or even just having a chat. Even if you want to find out more about me or you want to talk about you, I don't care. Like, if that's what it takes to keep you motivated, or if that's what it takes to even make you feel like you have help or have something, like, I personally have a mentor. She's extremely busy at the moment, and when she first started mentoring me, she was obviously more available, but she took a new job, and she loves it there. She's having a great time, and we've almost come to a point where we communicate just to share stories and experiences over the last, we'll say, 4 weeks. That's probably how often we talk. And to me, that's a huge help because she's got insights that I need. Like, I need those insights. She's got experience that I don't have with certain things. And it's like, there's times where stuff happens and I'm like, do you got time? I just gotta talk to you. I want to catch up, see how things are going. And then we'll be talking, and I ask her the question, and then it's like everything seems better right away. Even if she didn't say anything super like, here, this will fix your problem. Just talking it out with somebody that is in that position to talk it out, it like lets you think out loud, I guess. And yeah.
I know. And I also want to mention something as well. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes whenever I've made a post, or even when I've not made a post, I'm getting a lot of offers for CVs and how to beat the ATS systems and stuff. And to be honest, this kind of ties in to what I was saying earlier about, not when I say ignoring advice, I don't mean as in, be arrogant and think you know everything, but I think that sometimes you have to switch off from it because it gets too much. Because again, it's not really helping. It's like when you drink alcohol, it might make you feel lightheaded and easygoing for a while, but then when the effect wears off, you actually feel a bit worse before you get back into that balance. And to be honest, my ambition is not to have my CV done. I've had my CV done, redone. It's actually pretty good. It's not just my opinion, it's a lot of other people's. And it's like, yeah, but that's not really helping me. I don't really need you to do me a CV. I'm perfectly capable of doing a CV myself. But if you want to give me a reference in terms of a job or perhaps an interview, go ahead. But that's the other thing as well. You have to be careful. And I've also noticed on LinkedIn, I'm sure you guys have as well, is is an increasing amount of scams going
Yeah, it's actually
off.
pretty crazy to target people who are looking for a paycheck to try to get money out of them. Like, that is twisted. To me,
Yeah,
you are the lowest of low
yeah,
at that point.
yeah. Well, it's predatory, isn't it? I mean, when you've got people who are struggling, it becomes you kind of get you're giving the impression that you're an easy target, that you're desperate, and it's okay to be desperate, but don't be desperate in a way where you get taken advantage of, or you fall for something that might seem genuine on the surface, but it's actually a shabby prelude to some form of confidence trick. And being unemployed, it is tough, and the last thing you want is for someone to try and scam you out of the few pennies that you're saving just for, I don't know, for example, in my case, a frozen pizza. Yeah, it's a real it's a real shame that I think LinkedIn has gone downhill on that, but this is why it's really important to have your own personal ambitions. So set your short-term ambitions, medium-term, mid-term ambitions, long-term ambitions, and lifelong ambitions. I think that is really important, and I think that having a good sense of your own ambitions that you want to fulfill is also another defense against people who may just want to fleece you. I mean, would you guys agree with that?
You mentioning ambitions there. Well, actually, yes, of course, that will help clear you against any of those scammers. Because then you actually have a target now. You won't be swayed every which way by people offering you different things that are off the path from what you're trying to travel. But it actually also ties in very well with what I want to mention about the coaching messages or the coaching posts that you were mentioning earlier, and that these coaching posts, they can list a bunch of different actionable steps to take for a bunch of different parts of the job search. They may contradict each other, or one coach may say something that another coach disagrees with, and they'll say their own thing. But I think that people will only understand whose advice to take if they can solidify those ambitions first, if they can solidify the emotional decisions that you have to make when in a job search. For example, like, what industry do you want to go for? Do you want it to be the SaaS world, beauty products? Do you want it to be fintech, edtech, etc.? Like, if you don't make up your mind on that, then you can't really choose the best advice to take, because the best advice to take depends on which path you're going down, which ambition you want to follow. And that also ties in with what I want to do this year, which is help more people who are in their job searches or in their career changes make the emotional decisions first. Because I don't think you're making any progress on a job search without those emotional decisions made.
Definitely. I think that is a very valid point, Will. Yeah. I mean, Zach. I mean, what do you think? I know we're going to be wrapping up shortly, but I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that as well. I know you've mentioned some of your thoughts about it because we've been talking about it for the last 10 minutes. But do you have any other thoughts or anything to add on this particular sub point?
So I compare your the coaching posts that you see. I compare them to when you ask for portfolio advice or reviews. You can ask 10 people, you'll get 10 different responses. You ask 10 different coaches, they're going to give you
Definitely.
10 different roadmaps, which may or may not contain some of the same information, or it may be worded slightly different or completely different. It just depends. And you also have to, if somebody comes to me and asks me my opinion on their portfolio, I'm going to give them my opinion from my background knowledge and what I know has helped me. And so my background comes from art, graphic design, fine arts. Like my portfolios were physical, super heavy things I had to lug around to interviews and lug around to even to get into college. I had to have a portfolio ahead of time and bring it there. And so my idea of a portfolio is completely different. Like the way I'm redesigning my portfolio highlights not only my creative ability and my value, but it highlights what I enjoy. And I'm doing it very pop-up book. Does that make sense? So like when you open,
I like that.
when you'll open my projects, the projects all have a theme, but they all fit the theme of my style. And as you're going through the information, I've cut out all the bullshit. Like there is no block of text anywhere anymore. I have no bullet points anywhere anymore. As you scroll through these projects, things fade in with graphics that happen to have a headline or may just be that headline as a graphic itself. Like even the buttons on my website that I'm designing look like ink spatter. So they're one color when you see them, and when you click on them, it flattens into an ink spatter for that button. And I'm doing it very interactive, very childlike, very playful, because people soak information in so quickly, but that may not work for a researcher. That may not work for a researcher. That may not work for...
Well, yes.
Yeah, so it can't work for everybody. And that's why when I give advice, it's like, well, here's what I'm doing, and here's the advice that was given to me that opened that window for me to look in that direction. And I actually posted about that the other day, because I did get advice early on from my mentor, and she was like, dude, you have this thing and I see it in all of your pieces, but you're not highlighting it. Like, lean into that, do it. And so I'm finally taking her advice and redoing my portfolio, because I've let it sit stagnant for forever.
Nice.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention, actually, again, sorry to interrupt, but I remember my tutor was telling me quite often it would be, very much in your style, Cross. And this is something I think is really important. Again, it's okay to get advice, but I think really you should only look for advice when you've got no other alternatives, when you can't think of any other way to develop yourself. And it's like with portfolios. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't have the most developed website or portfolio, but at the same time, it's not flashy. It's just there, direct to the point. I mean, I could tart it up, I could add some effects and stuff, but I have that as a reflection of how I pass on my knowledge to people. I mean, as you said, it's your own journey, but you can't do it in the same way. I mean, I'm very much a believer in holistics, i.e., the whole approach, which is why whenever I've given help to people, I don't tell them the way I did it and get them to emulate it. I always told people how I did things, but I get them to think about how they can change that will relate to their own experiences and expectations in order to be able to be productive.
I mean,
in doing that. And it's as you said, you ask 10 people for advice, you'll get 10 different things. And I'm very much a big believer in self-empowerment. I mean, yeah, sure, there are plenty of things to learn from other people, but I think with self-empowerment is where the real confidence comes. And then once you get that confidence and you're sticking to your guns, so to speak, that's where you become a personal brand. That's where people will buy into you, because they think, well, hey, if this person is very confident, obviously they have a very good vision, and they and that's inspiring, I think. So I think it's really important to add that unique flair, like you with the ink splodges, or say I'm doing UX writing. I know full well that if I'm writing in copperplate in ink and I upload or scan the image, it'll add a different twist. It'll be, oh wow, this guy's not just typing copperplate on the computer, he's actually writing it.
Yeah, and I mean, cliche as hell, I guess, for a UXer, but show them why. Like, show them why in your portfolio. Show them why you're the person. and why you did things a certain way or why you do things a certain way. And you don't have to tell them. You show them, like, if this is your style or this is what shines out while you do work, show it to them, show them why you're doing
Yeah.
it. And I guarantee you'll at least be happier with your own portfolio, and everybody else can kind of fluff off,
Yeah, exactly. And I think that as long as you have the core information there, I mean, my portfolio, I have 4 projects on there, and I think it's counterproductive. I've seen the odd portfolio where people have 8, 9, 10 different projects, and a lot of the projects is pretty much the same process.
Yeah,
And I think,
it's
well,
weird. They get like
it,
cookie cutter, and the whole point is like,
yeah, that's it. Cookie. Yeah, it's better to have a few examples, a few projects where you can go into detail, you can really highlight your journey, the impact, what you were trying to achieve, your justification. Because as you know, Zach, you've done it. I did it in a different industry. You have to pitch to stakeholders, you have to pitch to the public, you have to pitch to interested parties, and they don't want you to tell them what they want, what you think they want to hear. They just want you to tell them what you think and your evidence for that and to back it up. And I think that's the same approach people should take with their portfolios. Inject your own personality in it, because at the end of the day, that's how you get the best. That's how you give your best, by being comfortable in doing what you do.
yeah. And I mean, honestly, at that point, your portfolio is no longer like, well, everyone will want me. It's like, no, that company that is looking for that thing will want you. And that will be the place where you're probably going to be happiest, because you are what
Exactly.
they are searching. Like,
Yes,
you're not this everybody's man UX
unequivocally,
UI.
that is true.
Like, here's my style. This is how my style can fit in, and this is why it works for this. Yep, that's exactly what we need. And
Yeah.
it'll be 1, 2, 3 companies out of the 20 you apply to, but those 3 companies are going to value you as a designer more than the other ones would have.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if we take a look close to home, the 3 of us, if we, when we post under our LinkedIn page, we have different styles of writing. I'd be able to tell. I'd say, oh yeah, I think Will posted that, or you could say, oh yeah, Cross definitely posted that, because, for example, we wouldn't necessarily use certain words that might be a little archaic or anything. I mean, you guys have seen the way I post when I'm introducing a new episode and stuff. It's very bold. There's a lot of it. There's a lot of text, but I would say it's also exciting. The way I write is very engaging, very narrative, very uplifting as well, and very positive, I would say. I mean, I don't know if people would agree with that. That's up to them. But I think it is important to have that. I mean, we don't all write the same. I mean, we all know the same stuff with UX design, but I'm pretty sure the 3 of us do have different styles, different variations, different opinions on certain styles. But that's perfectly okay. That is actually, I think, a good thing, because it means that if you get the uniqueness out of people, you can actually make a product really unique.
That's exactly it. And again, I know we got a little off of ambitions, but that's the reason for ambitions. Like, that's the reason I want to read all these books, because I know they're only going to help me achieve what I'm trying to achieve in the future.
Well, definitely. But I think it actually does relate to personal ambitions, because your personal ambitions are unique to you. So if you have your own way of doing things, of course, you have to obviously work with people. You have to sometimes concede that your point's not going to be accepted. But actually, it is part of the personal ambition. So I don't think we actually went off on a tangent. But yeah, I think that in terms of personal ambitions, I think we've actually covered a good range of all the different variables of personal ambitions. And as we've done that, we are also going to wrap up the episode. We may revise this in the future, because obviously personal ambitions change. But yeah, we're going to wrap up. But we hope that you've, like always, you've enjoyed the episode. This is our first episode of 2024, and we're coming to the twilight of our first season, and so by the spring we'll be on season 2. But that does not mean that we will not have any good content between now and then. We will be producing the content, and we will always be available to lend an ear. So there's not really anything for me to add. I mean, what about you guys? Anything to add, or do you think that we've really covered what we wanted to cover in this episode for our listeners?
When we start season 2, can you do a what you missed last season intro?
Yeah, maybe we will actually do. Maybe we'll record our pre-recordings. Maybe we'll add some bloopers on YouTube or something like that.
Yeah, that could be.
Maybe we will.
I definitely.
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing. Actually, I think it'd be, yeah, like you said, it would be fun. It'd be humorous. It would just be great, I think.
All right. Well, if that's it, then I'll say bye.
See you guys.
Yep. Well, in that case, I think the writing's on the wall there. So again, thank you all for tuning in. Please look forward to the next episode. And again, do get in touch with us. And of course, we are also very interested in working with people. So if you have a project, an idea for a project, even if we can't physically work with you on it, we'd be more than happy to contribute our ideas. And on that note, we'd like to say good night. Thank you again. And you'll be hearing from us in the next episode. So good night, everyone.